Welcome back to the Hive, everybody. We have a really great show for you today. We have a rider who I considered a superhuman. Very few people I would put in that category. But this rider was a superhuman. He was the Wheelie King. His name was Doug Domokos. Doug was born December 31st, 1955 in Niles, Michigan. Do you know where Niles, Michigan is? I have no idea. Doug began riding at the age of 15. There was an old abandoned railroad station by his house, and he was riding around the station, the tracks, everywhere. And Doug became a pretty good motocross rider as well. He began working for this motorcycle shop called Red Bull Cycles, and he was working there at the shop, and then when they fixed the motorcycles, the owner said, Doug, why don't you test those motorcycles out? So Doug would go ahead and ride those motorcycles, and when nobody was looking, Doug would start doing wheelies on other people's motorcycles. In the 1970s, Red Bull sponsored a bunch of motocross races in the local area, and they wanted a halftime show, and they knew that Doug was doing those wheelies on other people's motorcycles, and they said, hey Doug, would you like to go ahead and perform in our halftime show in their intermission and do some wheelies? 8 years later, Brian Farnsworth of Kawasaki discovered Doug Domokos, and he said, hey Doug, would you like to do some wheelies for Kawasaki? He gave Doug a Kawasaki and a pickup truck, and he said, hey, let's go traveling. Doug started doing the wheelies at the local motocross races, the supercross races, and Doug was doing good, and he was getting better and better and better, more popular. He was in the motorcycle magazines. Doug Domokos started growing his fame. In 2010, there was a comic book writer named Stan Lee, and he produced a TV show. It was on the History Channel called Superhumans. Did you see that show? It was really good. I watched it all the time. But Doug was not around at that time. But if Doug was there, if he was here, he would be on that show. Why? Because Doug was definitely considered a superhuman. 3 years after signing with Kawasaki, Doug was discovered and promoted by Team Honda. He was a Honda rider. He switched from Kawasaki to Honda. And that's when Doug's career really began to blossom. He was riding everywhere. He was riding the whole world. He was riding in Europe and everywhere. Doug Domokos became an international wheelie king. Doug's fame grew bigger and bigger all throughout Europe, riding for the Team Honda. A lot of people have texted me and said, I live in Europe and Doug Domokos was a good rider. And they all remember Doug Domokos. He's one of the top video people I have on my channel. Doug Domokos will never be forgotten. But Doug Domokos, he performed before thousands of people all over the world. He was everywhere. And he even performed for the Emperor of Japan. 3 years later at the Talladega Speedway in Florida, I believe it is, he set the world record for the wheelie, the longest wheelie on one wheel, 145 miles. Doug Domokos was on that one wheel. I wonder if he got tired. I wonder if he had to use the restroom or get a drink of water. But Doug Domokos was riding that wheelie for 145 miles. Woo! Also, after that 145-mile wheelie, he went to New York and he set the Guinness Book of World Records for the highest wheelie on top of the Empire State Building. He was doing a spinning wheelie round and round. I hope he didn't fall off. Doug became a fixture at Supercross. He was at all the Supercrosses. He was traveling with them and doing wheelies during their halftime shows, during their intermissions. Doug Domokos would ride wheelies. I saw that at the Anaheim Stadium. I saw him a few times and he just blew me away. He would ride a wheelie all the way around the track, over the jumps, everywhere. Then he'd ride the wheelie back around the jumps. Then he'd go over cars, and then he'd go here, there. Doug Domokos was just unbelievable. Also, Doug did some shows at the Costa Mesa Speedway in Costa Mesa, California. He would perform during their intermission shows. He would be riding those three-wheelers and doing wheelies and doing all these stunts. And then he would hop on his 185cc Honda. He would do wheelies all over the place. Doug Domokos was just a pure entertainer. About a year ago of Doug, and I just thought it would just be a so-so video. Probably nobody would watch it, but it was like one of my top 10 videos. Still to this day, last week I was looking at my top 10 videos on my channel, and in the top 10 was who? Doug Domokos. That guy is hot and everybody likes him. Lots of people have texted me. I have a friend, he's in California. He says he idolizes Doug Domokos to this day. He does wheelies. Everyone just knows and loves who? Doug Domokos. He was so talented. A guy like Doug comes around only one time in a lifetime. That is why I label Doug Domokos a superhuman. Doug Domokos set this high standard, and all of us riders, they all want to be Wheelie Kings. Me too, I want to be a Wheelie King, but I'm not that good. But many of us try and fail to be the Wheelie King. Doug is he set this high standard, and he's just superhuman, and nobody else will ever reach his level of success, his level of ability. The superhuman, the Wheelie King. There's a street in San Francisco called Lombard Street. Do you know Lombard Street? It's the windiest road in the whole world. Lombard Street is really cool. I've been there many times. I've driven the car down. I think it's a one-way street. And they did a TV show. I think it was Wide World of Sports, but I'm not sure. And Doug Domokos started at the top and rode the wheelie all the way down. And then he would ride over cars. He got to the bottom of the hill in a wheelie, no stopping, no wheel, go down, turned the bike around on a wheelie, went all the way up the hill, over the cars. Doug Domokos was incredible. That road was windy and it was cool. Lombard Street in San Francisco, I like that place. Doug Domokos was the master of Lombard Street. Doug's fame just kept growing and growing. He went from Wheelie King to superstar. One thing I've learned about life is very fragile. Misfortunes, accidents, anything can happen in life. One day you're happy and doing good, and the next day you're wiped out. And that's just the scary part about life. And accidents happen to everybody. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. Things can happen to anyone. And Doug's beautiful life, his amazing life, came to a screeching halt on November 27th, 2000 in Murrieta, California. He was only 44 years young, superstar, amazing talent, one of the greatest ever. Things just suddenly changed in the snap of a moment. He bought an ultralight airplane and was in Murrieta, California, and he's with his instructor, Doug Lamb. He was flying that ultralight with his instructor, and they were doing stunts and stuff. You know, Doug Domokos is a daredevil. And Doug was doing some turns, and according to witnesses, he made a really sharp turn, and the wing of his ultralight plane either ripped or ripped off, and Doug and his teacher went crashing down, and they died instantly. A total tragedy. No one believed that something like that could happen to Doug Domokos. It was just something that nobody would even think of. But it did. Doug Domokos, the Wheelie King, superhuman. He's just an amazing talent. He left a lasting impression on everybody who saw him. He was just unbelievable. And he was gone too soon at age 44. He was just left this impression on the whole world. And to this day, everyone remembers him. So we want to honor and give thanks to the life and the memory of who? The Wheelie King, Doug Domokos.